driven, charismatic, intentional, human soul that I've ever met that cares deeply about people and deeply about unlocking our potential. One of the things I love about Micheal is his concept of prey drive. And we may get into that a little bit today, but what I really love is this topic of competitive intelligence. What makes Micheal so special is he is plugged in around the world every single day, coaching clients, coaching companies, doing presentations. I asked him before we got on the call, how many days a year is he on the road? And he said 150 days. There's not a more passionate person about people that I've met in the last decade or two than Coach Micheal Burt. So, Coach, great to have you with us, buddy.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you, man. Always
Yeah,
good to spend
yeah.
time with you.
Let's pop into chat and just give us a sense of where you're coming from today, and we'll get a little organized around that. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to everyone. There we go. And I am in hot Vegas, where it is 115 already, and it's 10 o'clock, so that's a little daunting. But go ahead and let us know where you're coming from. Is chat enabled, Scott? Let's see, everyone. There we go. Panelists can go with everyone. And everyone, there we go. Okay, everybody should be able to chop in right now. And so we're going to get started on this. And as is always the case, Houston, Texas. There we go. Michael's in, and I'm in Las Vegas, and my keyboard is not working. So all right, so we came up with a topic that I think is actually Coach came up with it, and I said, you know, everybody on this weekly call is about leadership, and I want to freshen up maybe some perspective around leadership. And so, as you've seen, the title of today's program is Building Competitive Intelligence into your team. And I told Micheal those two words together are probably two of the most powerful linked words that I've ever seen when you think about competitive intelligence. Usually we think about intelligence being smart or having wisdom or something like that, but how do we unleash that into competitive? So why don't you start off, Coach, with what was the I don't know, the epiphany or the moment where you locked on to those two words and then made it about leadership in teams?
Well, when I was a women's basketball coach for 13 years, I was doing all these really interesting things with the players. I was, teaching the players the 7 habits of highly effective people and principles of good to great and 5 dysfunctions of teams.
Yep.
And my players were just smarter than other people's players. They had more discipline, they had more chemistry. And people always ask me, like, what were you doing with those kids? And then I started to say I was really building a competitive intelligence. If you look at intelligence, there's multiple intelligences, right? The body has a PQ, intelligence, physical quotient. The mind has an IQ. The heart has an EQ. The spirit has an SQ. And I was really building the whole person. And instead of just saying building the whole person, I began saying what I really became a specialist at was building competitive intelligence in teams, which is inner engineering all 4 parts of their nature, the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. And that sounded better in corporate America when companies would hire me. They say, what are you really a specialist at? And I'd say, man, I'm a specialist at building competitive intelligence in teams by building the whole person, body, mind, heart, and spirit. And that came from my work with Covey from 18 to 25 years old.
So Covey had a big influence, obviously, on the world, and one of my good friends was Hiram Smith, who was the founder of Franklin Quest, and those two guys came together to create Franklin Covey. And I remember a moment where I was in Salt Lake City and I was sitting down with Hiram Smith, and the first thing he did, which was amazing back in those days, so it would be pre-mobile phone, and he took his desk phone off his desk and opened the bottom drawer of his desk, and he put the phone in his desk. And he said, this is going to be the most important meeting that I have today, and I want to make sure we're not interrupted. And when I just saw that, I'm just going, wow, talk about intentional and purposeful intelligence and simultaneously making my head, my heart, my body, and my emotion feel like boom, right? And then you look at the Covey world and the Covey work and those habits. And I think what's interesting, I want to go off on this before we get into some of the questions. I think it's interesting to pose the question to everybody that's a leader. Do you really know your team in these 4 quadrants? So hit them again, Micheal, hit all 4, and then just say why in chat if you could improve in these 4 areas with your teammates. Go ahead, Micheal, give them all 4 again.
Well, if you look at any person, and if a person is made up of these 4 dimensions, the body would represent skills, the mind would represent knowledge, The heart would represent passion, prey drive. The spirit would represent confidence. So you can really coach any person in any four of those areas, and you could quickly diagnose this one has knowledge, but he doesn't have skill. He has skill, but he doesn't have confidence. He's got confidence, but he doesn't have, right? He doesn't have skill, which would be arrogance. He's
Right.
he's he's got a lot of passion, but he doesn't have knowledge. Like so, it's very easy when I learned that model. It was very easy for me to quickly diagnose what a person needed, and I started calling it, man, if you could click on all four cylinders, that is competitive intelligence. You have an advantage over other people if you're hitting all cylinders in every dimension of your nature.
So give me in chat just a why if you think this would be a step up for you as a leader, just in the capacity of leading in a 360-degree way, because each one of those is a cylinder. Give me a why if you can improve in this real quick. It's not a rhetorical question. I know that we all can. And I want to go off on something that go ahead, guys, activate chat. Just give me a why, either that or give me a P, and that means you're a pro at this. All right, we're just going to wait for them to load up. So interesting that Gallup came out with their global leadership report February 11th of this year, and they measured worldwide what employees wanted from their leaders. And the end of the day, 9 out of 10 employees worldwide said first, 66% said, I want to have more hope with my leader. And that hope was defined as the emotional and even kind of mental piece of career pathing, fulfillment, on the right track, purposeful, intentional redirecting and coaching, all that kind of stuff, right? So hope was interesting because it didn't have anything to do with skills necessarily, although that would translate into obviously engaging and enlarging hope or faith. But then the second one was trust.
Yeah.
And the other two were in single digit, and these were both in double digits. So it ends up that 9 out of 10 people in the world are saying that what I want from my leader is more hope and more trust. So how do the four different areas come into play there in the overall approach? I mean, I can see how leaders today can often default into skill development and miss maybe the EQ part or miss the emotional connection. And one of the things I say to leaders is the best way to move somebody to a new behavior. You can't move them physically until you move them emotionally, right? If I can connect emotionally, then they're open to skill development and so on and so forth. What is your sense on hope and trust and these four quadrants? And what are some things that you have done personally running your brands to make sure you and your leaders coach in all four?
Well, if you look at the Culture Code, which I thought was a good book about building cultures,
Yeah.
he really said there was three things people look for in a culture. One, trust, but trust in a different way. Of all the people I could choose that would help me with my potential, I trust that Todd Duncan is the best person for me to go work with. That's how he's talking about trust there. It's like, this is the person who can get me to my goals, can help me, right? Then he looked at
Right.
belonging cues. Then he looked at purpose as three kind of things that all the great cultures had. But I really think it's when you look at the whole person, think of it this way. Todd comes on my team and I give him knowledge. I teach him skill. I care about him as a person and activate his drive. I help him build his confidence. If I could do those things for him, on a weekly basis, he's going to be like, now this dude's helping me. He's giving me new knowledge. He's helping me with my skills, which is probably translating to economics, more economic prosperity for me. He cares about me as a person. That's the heart. He's activating my drive, and he's really helping me build and maintain my greatest asset, which is my confidence. That's how I look at it on a team. The leader's job is to build my knowledge, build my skill, build my desire, build my confidence. And if I can do those four things for people, they're gonna be committed to something.
I like the engine analogy. I like the four cylinders. I use the framework of, how do we turbocharge those four cylinders? Because you can have a very powerful four-cylinder motor, and so the dance is going to be around these four things, and it's going to be really, I think, mastering situational observation, connection with your team. And so one of the things that we talked about um, is why building cohesive teams is so difficult today. And you had also mentioned in the free agent society let's unpack that a little bit. And again, everybody, I really appreciate your engagement and throw any questions you have for Coach Burt in here, and we will pause as we go through this and answer them. But let's go ahead and start there. Cohesive teams, why is it so difficult today? Free agency market, so on and so forth.
Yeah, when I was a basketball coach, Todd, I spent on average 5.5 hours a day with my players. They were in pre-practice meetings. They went to one-to-one. We went to the weight room. Then we practiced. Then we did post-practice. Okay. I remember a time that me and my whole team went to the office together. We had glass offices. I could see them. They could see me. I could watch them prospect. They could watch me lead the company. And then COVID happened, right? And then it's like they're everywhere. It's a free agent nation. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know if they're following up with people. We don't know if they're mowing the grass in the middle of the day, which makes it incredibly hard to build teams. I remember we showed up at the same time, we worked at the same time, we went home at the same time. And it was easy because we were all there together. And if Jana's not prospecting, I could say, Jana, hey, we need to pick up the phone and call somebody right now. Like, right? Like I could do that in those days. Now it's like everything's led through Teams, through virtual, right? I just think there's a lot of slippage. You're not close to the power sources. Like people, it's in my organization, the people that stay closest to me make the most money. It's that simple. They get more leads, they get more opportunity, they get more daily coaching, they got more opportunity than anybody else. So you can't do that if I'm here and you're in Vegas, right? And it's like okay, that's where the slippage is. Well, that breeds a lot of time to mess around and not be focused and practice low value activity. So it's much harder today to build teams when there's not that interaction. So there's got to be a structure. It's got to be a rhythm. There's got to be an accountability. There's got to be all of those things to really build it in today's world, which is different than the old days.
So if you're talking to leaders right now, Donnie, who's one of our one of your fellow esteemed instructors and a good friend of the Fuel platform, um, Donnie said, do you always address all four, or do you concentrate on the greatest area of need? And prior to that, he said the four quadrants keep you from the danger of overcoaching or having to be the know-it-all, right? So leaders are not having to be the know-it-all. They have to really become the learn-it-all, and then they can dispose that learning in better ways, which you and I both know, and Donnie does as well. Renee Godefroy knows as well that the teaching is where the biggest implementation and stickiness happens. When you teach, you get more implementation success and share. And so always be learning, right? But what's the answer to the question? Do you address all four? Do you concentrate where there might be the greatest area of need? Because obviously you can't, I mean, I can't see addressing all four effectively at the same time, but maybe you have a different idea.
Well, let's look at it this way. If I'm out of balance in one part of my nature, I don't feel good about my body. My confidence is probably low. If I'm not putting the reps in, my confidence is low. Confidence is kind of the caboose to these things. So when you work on knowledge, skill, desire, your confidence is going to be higher. So as a coach, like I can tell you, this salesperson is lacking confidence right now. And that's because they don't have the knowledge they need. They don't know the product suite. This one needs to get better at conversion. They don't have the skills they need to make the money they need. So when you step back, you can diagnose the greatest area of the four, but it is true that you need to be nurturing all four parts of their nature. And when you see retention, people that stay longer feel valued in all four parts of their nature. That's a big piece. It's not always economic. You just pay them more money because I've seen paying more money and people not produce any better result, right? So I think when you really understand the whole person theory, that is where you work on all four parts, but you narrow down on the greatest deficiency. You say, if I could just work on the skill of this person, they would get a lot better here, which consequently they'd have a lot more confidence.
So it's interesting. I don't want to derail the beauty of where we are right now with Donnie's question, but I think that one of the things I look at is I look at this idea of competence leading to a level of confidence, which then leads to a level of consistency, which is then leading to this compounding effect that we all want to create in our companies. And it's interesting too because Amy just asked a question: what are the most effective strategies for fostering a sense of connection among team members who rarely or never meet in person? And true to the new economy and to the new, face to face, which is not. I mean, I see you, Michael. I know you're in Houston. You know I'm in Las Vegas. We can smile at each other. We know each other well enough to feel the power of that smile, but I don't feel your vibe. and I don't
Yeah.
feel your energy. And it's a great question because would you agree, first of all, that any of the four quadrants have to do with some level of situational connection, human connection? And then if so, what are some of the two or the three of the ways that you connect when people are not in the same office anymore and they are remote? What does that look like in
Well,
fostering a team today?
I think there's certain things you got to do every day. We train in the online academy every day. I send a morning message out at 7:15 every morning. It's about 3 to 5 minutes. We train in our online academy every day. We engage heavily as a group during the day through communication. And then you step back and coach one to one. So there's one to many, there's one to one, right? And that could be through phone calls, follow up. Hey, I noticed you're struggling. Hey, we're coaching you through this. And then we combo that with live events where people come together, get reactivated, come to the Greatness Factory of Nashville. But there's got to be some type of structure. People, right? It's like you may have said this to Mike Hardwick, but I always remember Mike Hardwick saying people are silently begging to be led, right?
Mhm.
And he used to say that all the time when I coached Churchill Mortgage, and people are silently begging to be led. So it's like, hey, man, a coach, I want everybody to really listen to this. A coach engages with people in a set of systematic behaviors that allows them to do something tomorrow that they cannot do today. Okay, so this is a big part. It's engagement, it's systematic. There's a system, there's a process, there's a follow up, there's real accountability. This is what I learned in sports. If it wasn't working, we changed it quick. We didn't stay with it for a long time. It's like, hey, that's not working. Let's shift a strategy. So I am, in a pure sense, a coach because I come from an athletic background of building teams and cultures and locker rooms and winning. And so I miss that in the corporate America a lot because it's just not as present as it is there. The intensity is not there. The consequences are not there. The accountability is not there. So I try to instill that in my teams as best I can, but we can always get better there for sure.
Well, one of the things that I teach in the 5 year refutable principles of success is principle number one is everything can be improved, and nobody can argue with that, right? So the interesting thing here, and again, I love, thank you guys for the interaction and everything. So Donnie obviously is gone behind the curtain, so to speak, and he asked a question: how can we recapture proximity effect with free agent nation? Maybe we need Donnie to, because
Well, I think frequency. I think
hang on, Michael, you're frozen for
yeah, I
just.
think I think frequency is what we need. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I got you. I got you back. So frequency, and then
Yep.
unpack that just a bit.
There we go.
Oops.
Okay. I think
I can hear you.
what we need is freedom. Okay, when there's a rhythm and there's a structure, and they're like, I coach every month, 2 to 4 days a month live. Okay, there's a frequency, there's a rhythm, like your heart beats in a rhythm. Life happens in a rhythm. I believe when you get out of that rhythm is when a lot of problems happen. Okay.
Right.
You quit doing things that made you be successful. Well, the same thing is true of a team. There's a rhythm, there's a structure, there's a communication, there's a follow up, there's a consequence, there's celebrating wins, there's suffering losses together. We're in that locker room together. So, what I think when people get out of that rhythm is when they really struggle. Like we prospect 35 to 57 touches, we go 7 to 15 touches in the follow up, we engage after the sale. There's a true customer acquisition system in place. People are being coached throughout the day, one, one to many. And so I don't really allow people to get out in left field too much because of the pure consistency and the frequency and the expectation. Everything in my organization set on daily goals. Everything. Everything's set on daily goals. Okay. We start at zero. It all goes to zero at midnight. We're trying to get to a certain number by the end of the day. We go back to zero tomorrow. We add it up. We try to hit a certain number every month. And when it's not working, it's my job to shift gears, right? And find a new play that we can run.
So talk about this for a sec because it is amazing to me to see when you don't have the mindset that you just shared, and it is structure. It's a structure. It's a system. John Maxwell, mutual friend of ours, always says that systems are the freeways to success. And it's very interesting when we talk about the reset, right? The daily goal. And come hell or high water, that's the focus of the day. And when we look at teams and we look at dashboards and we look at measurement, I think sometimes we get lost in the data. And so what have you seen? Oh, somebody, yeah, the rhythm keeps things going. Doesn't coaching lead to discipline, and doesn't discipline equal to lead to like results and ultimately freedom and productivity. I mean, because a lot of people don't like the word discipline, but we do know that I mean, you've been a coach of basketball teams for, a big part of your life, and discipline is a big part of the preparation, the execution, the follow-up, the debriefing, all of that, right? What's your bend on discipline to hit that daily goal, and how do we
Well,
keep it fun?
well, motivation starts it and discipline finishes it, and discipline is a derivative of the word disciple, which
Right.
means to give yourself to a person or cause you believe in. So when I speak around the country, I ask people, do you believe in your future? And everybody says yes. And I say, well, where does your future live? And some people will go here. And then a lot of people go here. Your future actually lives in your imagination. I can't see your future. Okay. It lives in your mind. Okay. The question becomes, will you become a disciple to that future, which means you'll have the self-discipline. So amateurs listen to their feelings. Professionals do not listen to their feelings. There's many times I don't feel, after writing 22 books or speaking around the country, I don't feel like doing it. No more than Journey doesn't feel like singing Don't Stop Believing again. Okay. But that's why we make the big money, because we don't listen to our feelings, right? So when
Right.
you don't know what to do, I do something. Okay. Amateurs listen to their feelings. When I don't know what to do, I do something. I start moving, and the moving creates the discipline. So there's never a time that I don't have something to do. Call somebody, encourage somebody, text message somebody, follow up with somebody, work a deal with somebody, work a strategic partner, call a current client. So this is what we call the language of winning, which is a language that we teach our students. Okay. When I don't know what to do, I do something. I'm sitting here, I don't know what to do. What can I do? I can pick up this phone, and I could work a deal. I could follow up with somebody. You see where I'm going? Okay. So this is part of the discipline. Then it becomes part of the habit, right? Then it becomes just a way of life. It becomes muscle memory. It's like, this is what we do. We chop wood and carry water. We follow up 7 times. We work the deal. We see something through to its conclusion. This is the language of winning. Think about being in a locker room and you hear the coach say it over and over and over and over and over, right? And Jana's here with me, who you've met before, and I'll say something to her, and she'll say, amateurs listen to their feelings, right? We don't whine, we don't complain, we don't make excuses, right? When we don't know what to do, we do something. It's like a little miniature Coach Burt, because they've heard it so many times. It's like, if I took this to Coach Burt, what's he going to say? He's going to say amateurs listen to their feelings, man, and we're pros. So this is all part of culture. This is all part of winning. Like when I did work with Kevin Elko, which was Saban's psychologist, how do they build cultures at Alabama? Identity, standards, language, accountability. Those 4 words. This is who we are. This is the standard we play to. This is the language we use. This is the accountability. And where there's no consequence, there's no change of behavior.
So on that spin, let's jump into I love what you just said. Where there's no consequence, there's no change in behavior. Uh,
Right.
just unpack that for everybody, because I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand the concept behind that. I also understand that we all make choices, right? We make choices, we make decisions, and every one of our choices and every one of our decisions has some level of consequence, negative or positive, right? Is that kind of how you come at it as a coach? Because obviously every player is not going to be perfect all the time, and there's going to be the healthy outcome, which is a positive consequence, and then there is the learning, right, which is recontextualized from missing a shot is not failure. It's just it's a way to continue to improve. So unpack that a little bit. And I love what's being said here. Micheal Burt brings so much wisdom, leadership, competition, and building unstoppable teams. That's a great compliment, coach.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Well,
talk about where there is no consequence.
if I believe selling is a game of probability, okay, in sports, everything is a game of probability. You know what actions you take that drive up the probability of winning. You know what actions you take that drive up the probability of losing. You could statistically prove the data. You could say, when we do these 3 things, we win 74.7% of the time. Okay. Now, in the business world, if I say our minimum standard is 35 outbound touches, we're looking for 35 to 57 touches a day of outbound effort to produce a sale. And if a salesperson turns in, well, I did 24 today. Okay. That didn't meet our standard. Well, if there's no consequence to that behavior, then they'll turn in 24 tomorrow and 24 the next day, until the leader says, look, we have a minimum standard here of 35 touches a day. Now, if you don't hit that standard, we're going to free you up to chase your real passion somewhere else. Okay. We're
We
not going
say
to
that
fire you.
in one of the greatest leadership bye-byes.
Yeah, we're going to free you because here we are the best at what we do. We're Navy SEALs, not baby SEAls. Okay. So if 35 is the minimum and you barely hit 35 every day, or you hit 24 because this happened and that happened and that happened, that is an excuse. And my mother raised me that excuses are self-proclaimed opt-out clauses. Okay.
Opt-out,
Because
self-proclaimed opt-out.
yeah. So it's like, hey man, that we don't accept excuses here for that. So I don't want them to be perfect, Todd. I
Yeah,
want them to put the effort in because money follows energy and movement and circulation and you know what we have is more of a complacent nation than anything until somebody says, no, we're not doing that here. We don't, just like I do with my 3-year-old daughter when she throws a fit. It's like we don't do that. We don't do that here. Okay. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. Okay. So, you know, when Joe Paterno was at Penn State, one of his biggest things is that's us and that's not us. We don't put our names on the back of the jerseys. That's us and that's not us. Okay. And I think with adults, you have to say to them, that's not us. That's us and that's not us. We prospect every day. We don't whine. We don't make excuses. We're coachable. So I think there's not enough leadership that does this because it's, you know, people don't want the conflict. But as a coach, it's like, man, that's what makes great coaches great coaches.
right. So let's go from the field or the court to what you really just said and unlock this. The idea that everybody has to realize, I think at the start here, that leadership is not, I mean, it is a title, but it is much more than that, right? Your job as a coach in a leadership position is to pull the best out of people, to help them optimize the skill they have, to tie those skills to action and fulfillment and all that kind of goes along on the ride and whatnot. Why? Why do people set standards, which in effect also is boundaries, and not hold people to the standards? And I want to go off on this with you. I'm sure you have some thoughts on the psychology that begins to happen in an organization when standards fail to mean anything.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason people don't want to address the consequence is because there's a friction point in going and getting another person. So what we do is we justify. This person did 25 touches. They really supposed to do 35, but they've been with the company for 4 years and they have some institutional knowledge. And for us to go get another person, we got to go through this again. And the brain just says that's going to be a lot of work. So let's just tolerate this person. Okay. But in the sports world, that's not how we did it. Okay. It was like, you're not producing. I'm going to go to this person and I'm going to sit you on the bench. And there's a consequence to you not producing because we got to win. And winning is more important than this one person. So I think what happens on the psychology of it is it really becomes a friction point. We got to hire a person. We got to train a person. We got to get them up and get going. So we'll just tolerate this one because they're pretty good. They don't really hurt us, but they don't help us. And that's, I really see small businesses specifically go through this vicious cycle over and over and over. And every now and then, out of 4, we get a good one. And that's kind of what we tolerate until one day we go, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay. You're out and you're out and you're out. And we're going to go find some people who want to play at a much higher level.
So I think it's fascinating and it's interesting when we take what you just said and I'm going to say to everybody a couple things that I really truly believe in and one of them emanated from a conversation with Darren Hardy a couple years ago. But he said to me at dinner, we were having dinner with our wives in Del Mar, California, and he said to me, he said, you know, at the end of the day, a life will give you what you tolerate.
Yeah.
And so I park that on the sidelines for just a second. And then I say this, I say oftentimes the most expensive time in a leader's life is the time between when he or she gives up on somebody and does something about it. That gap is absolutely destructive, not
Right.
only in culture, and I think back to boundaries and back to the word tolerate. Why is it that we, A, give people so much time? And why is it that we don't understand that boundaries that are not honored and held to create disrespect between the employee and the leader. Just like in codependency as a parent and a son or a daughter, you can say something to your child and the first time they break that boundary, if there is no consequence, and they break it again, and there's no consequence, and then they break it again, pretty soon they don't respect you because your boundary is meaningless. And I think one of the great lessons for leaders is to be bold and brave. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens to leaders is they wake up and they go, I got 99 problems. And that is on the list, but it's way on down the list.
Mhm.
That's the way they think about it. And let's just keep the trains moving. And I know I'm guilty of this sometimes. Like, hey, I got bigger problems than this one person. Yes, I need to get rid of this person. I got to deal with it. But I got to deal with these other things that are bigger than that right now. And I do think that's maybe how we justify it sometimes. And we say, hey, this is on the list, but it's way on down the list. It's not at the top of the list. Now, the truth is, I'm playing around with this concept for a small book called, like Make a Damn Decision. And it's kind of like I've studied the psychology of decisions, avoidance behavior of why people don't make decisions. And the truth is, it requires some mental energy, right? You kind of psychologically or emotionally make a decision, but you don't really follow through with that decision to go through what it is because there's some type of ramification. And like I said, it could be you got to go find somebody else to fill that spot, or you've tried it before, and the brain says, well, we're not good at recruiting people, or we're not good at training people, or there's a lot of turnover, or whatever it is, whatever it is you say. So I do think that's really the challenge of us, that there's certain people should stay and certain people should go, right? And we do know that, but there's something in us. I know I have a heart for people. I'm a tough guy, but I'm also a very compassionate person. And I will stick with people and give them a chance and work on them and try to coach them and see the positive in them when somebody else would have said, you're out, man. Now, I'm also a guy who will walk in one day after a lot of that and go, today's your last day. And it's like I give them a lot of chances and then I'm like, I'm done and you're out. Okay. So, and I think there's positives and negatives to that.
I think that, yeah, I think we get back to trust on this. We get back to the leadership connection on this. I love how you said we'll unleash you to find your great passion and,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But I think the other interesting thing is like I have a group that's an elite coaching group, and there's, I don't know, 20, 24 members in it from, time to time as we go year to year on this. And one of the questions I asked them last November was, who is on your payroll that you're paying that you have psychologically disengaged from?
Yeah.
And you could not believe the face.
Yeah.
You could not believe the face. And it gets back a little bit to one of Maxwell's law of the bad apple, or the law of the weak link. I think that we sit here and we go, we got 10 team members, and one's a problem. So we got 9 that are doing it right. But the one that's a problem can really destroy the productivity of the 9 that, are engaged and fully optimal. So I think there's always that play as well. So getting back to then this idea of competitive intelligence, as we turn the corner past the bottom of the hour and we start to go to, so the how to is, we've discussed that. Um, I think we've discussed what it means. You have this massive elevated viewpoint of leadership throughout the world. And if we were to unpack the one role, the one thing that you think defines leadership, and we can go off on that and get some more questions. What would the one thing be? I mean, what are the people paying you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars looking for? What's that panacea, if there is one?
I mean, I may be skewed and biased on this because I wrote the book Flip the Switch, but I actually believe the number one role of the leader is to activate the prey drive in the people. I really believe getting people to go into battle every day, activating that drive to want to expand and grow is the number one role of the leader. Okay. And that's why I think people pay me to come in and do that, because they don't have that skill set. Right. And I know the psychology of how to activate that drive inside of people. Now, once you activate the drive, though, they need a system. So I always say, without a system, they're just wandering in the wilderness, man. And so they need explanation of value. They need a lead generation system. They need a follow-up and conversion plan. They need engagement after the sale. They need to know how to become people of interest. So it's one thing to get them activated. It's another thing to give them an exact plan. And those are the 6 steps of the businesses that I coach. And typically there's one area that struggles. So it's like, once I get them activated, now I got to send them into battle, but I send them into battle fully equipped. It's like, so that's where the training comes in, right? Like if we're training, like if every person should be on, if they're on fuel, they should be on fuel every day. They should be training every morning. They should be communicating to their team what they're doing. There should be a direct correlation between the training they're doing and they're getting better. Okay. And not doing it as an exercise to say, I train for 15 minutes, like really getting better, because that's what the top 1% of performers do. They train every day. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Military trains every day. Olympians train every day. World-class athletes train every day. So if you're going to build a culture where you train every day, and I'll even see some of our employees say, well, I trained today in this, and I bet I could ask them 5 minutes later what they train and they have no idea. Break it down for me. That's not training. Training is content, repetition, role play, simulation. Okay. So to me, that's where you got to say, I'm going to activate the drive. I'm going to give you the tools to go into battle. And if you can't perform at that level, it's you got one or two problems. You have an attitudinal problem or you have a skill problem. Okay. And that's one or two things. You don't want to do it or you can't do it. And either way, it's not working, right? It's not working. So then we got to go, what can we do now? And then we got to decide what we want to do. Coach them up or coach them out.
Okay, so then the activation of prey drive, if there is the proverbial one-liner or recipe, somebody just asked, how do I activate that? I love what you just said about and this gets down to the simplicity of life, everybody. You either handle it or you don't.
Yeah.
It's either a problem or it's not. It's not some gray area, right? And it's attitude or skill. And it can be both, right? I mean, bad skill can lead to bad attitude, and bad attitude can lead to bad skill. And the only way out of that is to change the perspective of why I should get better, and then how do I get better, and then the joy of getting better. But Prey Drive is, I know that this is it's part of the DNA of the Greatness Factory. It's part of you. How in a simple conversation, how do we activate that? I know we can go way deep on it, but how do we activate it?
Well, I think as a leader, it's our role to create a place of positive expectancy. Okay, that's number
Positive
one.
expectancy.
Yeah, it's like we're creating a culture of positive expectancy. Every day we train, every day we get better. I go into companies and they're apathetic. There's no real direction. There's no expectation. There's no standard. Some of these are, listen, billion-dollar companies. It's not
Yeah.
like, listen, you and I've coached some of the best companies in the world, and it makes you feel better. So all the small business owners, I'm like, hey, you should feel better about yourself because I've gone on to billion-dollar companies that don't have a culture of positive expectancy. They don't have a selling system. They don't follow up. They don't have leadership that watching what's going on. They just got a product or service that people need. There's high demand for it, but it's like they're not any better than a lot of the small businesses that we coach. So when you think about it, I think the leader's role is to create this culture of positive expectancy where you're going to get coached, you're going to get better, you're going to expect to do something. And that's why I built the Greatness Factory, because when you walk in, it's like a place of positive expectancy. We're here to do business. This ain't Thanksgiving with your family. This is business. Okay. And when I got to have a hard meeting with my team, that's what I say first. And I got that from a guy named Chuck McDowell who came in and spoke to my team. And the first thing he said is, this is a business meeting. This is not Thanksgiving with your family. And what we're going to be talking about in this meeting is business. And I thought that's brilliant. So anytime I get on somebody, first thing I say to them is, man, this ain't Thanksgiving with your family. This is a business meeting. And we're going to talk about you in business today. Okay. And what we're doing and not doing in business today. And I think that's a great way to set the stage for that meeting.
I love that, and I love the separation, and I think a lot of people on YouTube right now listening to this could put their hand up and say we could separate the two things. So one of the things that you mentioned was the power of fuel and having these micro lesson opportunities and appetite each and every day. So if you're a leader right now and your whole team is not on fuel, just email me. I just put it in the chat. Grab that email and just send me. I'd like to figure out how to put my team on there. Coach Burt is a big part of the Fuel organization and what we're doing worldwide. And our goal is to help you create a culture of happiness, healthiness, and productivity. Period. Happy employees produce more profit. Healthy employees can work and get more results more quickly. And when people are growing, it attracts people to your organization and it keeps loyalty strong. Loyalty is a two-way street, and you have an obligation to not only have hard talks and the hard conversations, but also the joyful conversations. Ken Blanchard used to say all the time, he probably still says it in his late 80s, but he would say, a pat on the back is only a few inches above a kick in the ass. And the pat on the back is a lot better than a kick in the ass. Sometimes we have to do that, but the pat on the back and praise. And he also said it was an interesting, you talk about daily behavior, coach, and you talk about goals daily. One of the things that Blanchard said is catch people doing things right, right? And so we have to have this balancing act. And one more thing he said is four positive deposits for one withdrawal, right? And so praise four times and then coach, give him some love and then give him the hard truth. Somebody asked a question about conflict. How can people get better at conflict? The first thing I would say is that if you have a healthy relationship, there's always going to be healthy conflict. You can have heated discussions, you can have conflict, but you're not going to enter that with criticism. You're going to enter that with, like instead of constructive criticism, it's like nobody will take that positively, but helpful feedback could be taken very positively, right? And so one thing I would say, and maybe Coach, we can start to go to wrapping this up with some more questions, and then the idea of is it true the longer you avoid a hard conversation, the harder it gets?
I mean, most likely, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would just ask you guys, what keeps you awake at night? And what do you think about that needs your attention and needs you to make, brave and courageous decisions? And you said early on, Coach, on our time together that as soon as you take an action, you will get the feeling. So when we start to make progress in taking the actions, it affirms like, why did I wait so long? Or I need to make this part of my regular routine. Not that we're going through swashbuckling and cutting people left and right. It's just you're in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leadership is you have the vision, you know where you're going, the team is following you. That's where the trust and hope comes into play. So very, very important stuff. Okay, we got Micheal for another 10 minutes or so. Let's throw some questions in here that you want to ask Coach, and then we can tie this together. Once you as questions get loaded here, Coach, what's the best way to stay in contact with you?
Yeah, Instagram at Micheal Burt. I do spell it Michealburt, or my mother spelled it that way.
I love that story.
That's a good way to engage with me, or you can direct message me. I do have, if you go to coachburt.com, there's actually a planner that you can download on how I map out the days to stay structured around a concept called A to B, around a book that I wrote. And so that'd be the two best ways. YouTube, a lot
Yeah.
of content on YouTube, and Coach Micheal Burt, all those type of things.
Right, right. And if you're ever in Nashville, stop by the Greatness Factory. It is one of the most beautiful thought centers, and just it's just got a vibe, dude. I haven't been there yet, but I've gone inside it and looked at it, and very, very proud of you. And I love the idea that greatness is worldwide.
Yeah.
We can all get it. Okay, so Rene Godefroy. Rene's story is born an immigrant, born in poverty in Haiti, made his way to America as a dream, and now is one of the best speakers in America on the tour and everything. And he asked a great question because he is probably one of the most positive people I know. But the question he asked is, can you say more about positive expectancy? And I know you kind of framed it, but if somebody wants to begin moving the moment we end this webinar today into creating a more positive expectancy in people, what are two or three things you would say do this in the next, I don't know, 48 to 72 hours?
Well, I've done a lot of work this year with the great psychologist Price Pritchett, Dr. Price Pritchett,
Yes.
wrote U Squared and Quantum Leap Strategy. He and I actually did a full executive program this year for executives. And I did that because I really wanted to learn under him and study under him. And he wrote a book called Heart Optimism. And he sees optimism as a skill. It's a skill that you can acquire. Like by nature, most people don't know this about me. I'm by nature a defensive pessimist. Like I'm kind of hardwired to see the negative versus the positive. I'm kind of hardwired to focus on what's wrong versus what's right. There's a strategic optimist that typically sees, hey, it's all going to work out. And there's a defensive pessimist that typically thinks of things that could go wrong. Belichick, defensive pessimist. Nick Saban, defensive pessimist, right? Coach Burt's a defensive pessimist. Okay. So having known that, it's like, okay, how do I stay in a positive expectancy place? I stay in a success cycle versus a sewer cycle. And that starts with one thought. Okay. One negative thought takes you to the sewer cycle. It's going to be a hard day. Man, it's hard to sell coaching today. We're in an economy doing this. We're doing this. Okay. That leads you down to negative town. Okay. One positive thought. This is going to be a great interview. I'm excited to be in Houston today. We're going to meet good people. That leads you more toward positive expectancy. than going to the sewer cycle. And that's based on the work of Nate Zinsser, who wrote A Confident Mind. So I kind of combine all the people I study. Pritchett, Zinsser's the psychologist at West Point, and he talks about the sewer cycle versus the success cycle. But positive expectancy is, I say the greatness factory is a place of positive expectancy. You get there, we expect good things to happen. We've sourced over $200 million worth of deals there. We've raised 30 million in capital in the last year there and in that building. And somebody said, "Well, you could have done that at Denny's or Waffle House." And I'm like, "I've never raised 30 million at Waffle House." Okay. But I have at the Greatness Factory. So, it's like positive expectancy is a tone. But it is a hard skill. So Hard Optimism is the book that Pritchett wrote that I'd recommend there.
I love that. And who was the author again of A Confident Mind?
Nate Zinsser, A
Nate
Confident Mind,
Zinsser.
who is a psychologist. Yeah, he's a psychologist at West Point, trains all the cadets at West Point.
Yeah, it was interesting in my work with Dr. Martin Seligman. When he wrote Learned Optimism, it was crazy to see that one of the statistics I got out of that is that optimistic salespeople will outperform pessimistic salespeople by 52% minimum. And I
Wow.
started thinking about that. And when I read the book, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, which was my first motivational book, besides some of the just the Bible stuff that I love reading. But the one thing I took a lot from that book, but I'll never forget the quote that really moved me. It was like there's very little difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, but the little difference makes the biggest difference. The little difference is attitude, and the biggest difference is whether it's positive or not. And that book was written in 1950, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I see that today in our world, that positivity is a joyful way to go forward in business and life. And stuff happens. Our leadership line last week was about, the chaos after creation. And at the end of the day, you can get something good out of everything that is bad.
Yeah.
And it's a real great recipe for life. Okay, one more question for Coach, and then we'll let him go. And again, if you want your team on fuel and they're not on fuel, we have some smoking deals right now. Just email me at todd@myfuel.io. Thegreatnessfactory.com is a beautiful thing to just hang out on for 30 minutes and check it out and see all the different things that they're doing there. Let's get one more question from the chat, and we'll begin to answer that. I'll ask you a question right now. From this moment until, I don't know, a year or two from now, what are you most excited about, Michael?
I'm excited about building more greatness factories. I think these are deal flow centers. I think it attracts the best people in the world. I have a deep love for real estate and a deep love for coaching. So you're going to see me. I'm working on my second one in Cool Springs, Tennessee, which is outside of Nashville right now. We've been looking at one this week. We're looking at other major cities. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, we coach people at the Greatness Factory every week. And, I'm having fun raising capital and doing bigger deals and through our private equity fund and just getting a seat at a bigger table, man. That's a natural evolution for me after coaching for so many years of just partnering with people and doing bigger things.
You're starting, I've seen a lot of brand promotion around get a seat at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, The Big Table is the next big book that I'm writing. And in the interim while I'm writing the big book, I'm writing small books. So the next one will be called $1 Million Days. And I've got a series of small books that I want to write before I write the big table, but they all lead to you thinking at a much higher level and playing at a much bigger game. And that's really what the big table is.
Mm. All right. Well, it looks like nobody has a question as we head into the end here. Let me just scroll back and see if we missed anything here. Thanks again to everybody that's watching the live stream on YouTube. And greatnessfactory.com, Coach on Instagram, just at Michael Burt with Miceal, Burt.
Yep.
And then obviously check him out on social anywhere you want. He's one of the best thought leaders I've ever met. We have the commonality of purposeful coaching. We've had some crossover over the years in the mortgage and real estate business. He's done a lot of good stuff for a lot of clients that I love and vice versa. So it was a joy to have you today, Coach. I know you got a lot on your plate that you're
Yeah.
passionate, excited about in Houston today. So we will let you go. And I just want to thank all of you guys for chiming in today. I know an hour in a leadership day is really, really important, and you had a choice on spending it here or spending it somewhere else, and I'm grateful you did. I would like to encourage you to take this replay when it's out and share it with everybody that you believe needs to hear Coach Burt. This is one of the most powerful leadership lives we've had since we started that brand name every Wednesday. And join us next week as well. We're with next week Tom Ziglar, the son of the great Zig Ziglar, and we are going to talk with Tom about leadership from the inside out. It's going to be a powerful time together. Coach, thank you so much. I wish you a very, 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 very positive day and week, and I know you're going to do great things. So,
Thank you guys. Love you
yep,
guys. Make
thanks
it a great
everybody for
day.
watching. We'll talk to you soon on another Leadership Live.